Hello everyone, welcome to the EBS-50 tutorials. Today we're going to talk about some of the more advanced options in the network connections of the EBS-50. So let's start where we were the other time in the system settings. And the very first thing that you see is the hostname settings. So up until now we've always gone and visited ebs50.local. Well, what if you don't want to have it called ebs50.local? Well, no problem. The very first thing you see in the hostname settings is our current hostname. So we just select it and we type in something else like tutorial and we save that name. Then the system settings has successfully changed. So if we now serve to tutorial.local, with HTTPS in front, it will say, this is a new website with a self-signed certificate. Well, we created that certificate ourselves so we can trust it. And right now, we're visiting tutorial.local instead of ebs50.local. And that way you can modify the name to something that suits your environment a bit better. So that is the hostname. Another option is to change your Ethernet settings from a dynamic to a static address. If you have no DHCP server available and you assign IP addresses to actual hardware devices through the MAC address, then you want to change this to static. Change your IP address, the subnet mask, and the gateway to whatever the settings are of your local network, and press the Save button. Now, if you have a VPN network and you want your EBS-50 to connect to that VPN network, you can also add the configurations for a OpenVPN connections. So we go to VPN client, we turn it on, and then we upload a zip file containing the information. So I have one ready here, configuration OpenVPN. I open the file. I want to connect to Hoofddorp, our main office. I type in my username and I type in my password to connect to that network. I say connect. And OpenVPN will try to set up a VPN tunnel to the other side. And it says, yep, you are connected right now. And the IP that has been assigned on that network is this IP. And well, since we're actually in the office right now, I can also find the EBS-50 through its new VPN address. So now it's listening to its own IP address, it's listening to tutorial.local, and it will be listening on this private network address that it received. So let's move on to SSH settings. Now SSH is a low-level way of talking to the hardware. If for any reason this web interface is no longer working, you can also connect through SSH or Secure Shell. You've got tools like PuTTY, and if I type in the information for the hostname, which is tutorial.local, and I open it, it says, do you want to connect with it? Yes, I know that device. And the default logins are root and as password, admin. And we are inside and we can ask anything that you would ask any Linux terminal, like what is the internet configuration? And you get a bit of information. Or you can ask system control, what is the status of the application being the ESL server that we're browsing to. And it says, yeah, it's working. I've got a couple of information things in the log. This is very useful if you're troubleshooting. But you could also say, well, actually, I don't want this to be turned on. I would just want to switch it off. Or while it is switched on, I want to change that old password from admin to something way stronger with more characters and exclamation marks and numbers and mixes of uppercase and lowercase. We change the password, it changes, and in fact, the change is immediate. If I now say I want to log in as root and admin, access denied. So this is instant. You don't need to reboot the device. In the very first tutorial, I said that the products database already runs a sample database on a local MySQL database. Well, that one is accessible as well. Right here, it says that the remote access is enabled. You can also disable it, of course, if you don't want it. And the upside of it is that if you have a tool like the MySQL Workbench, and you want to edit the database through a editor tool like the MySQL Workbench, you can connect to the EBS-50 by saying, yeah, I want to add a new connection, TCP over SSH, let's call it EBS-50. Where is the host located? Well, it's at tutorial.local. We have an SSH username. We're called root, as we saw in the putty section. And our MySQL is running on the local host, on the default port, but with the user ESL. So let's test the connection. Well, root and the new SSH password that we gave it. Well, are you sure you want to connect? Do you trust this connection? It says with the server fingerprint. Yes, we want to connect to it. Then we are inside and it asks us for the password of the database itself. The user is called ESL and the default password is eslpassword, all lowercase. This information is also in the toolkit under the tools folder and the MySQL text file. After filling in the credentials, the MySQL Workbench tells us that there is a connection and a warning. We've successfully made the connection. Awesome. So let's take a look at that database that we have running on the EBS-50. It's a simple database called ESL. In there are a couple of tables. For instance, the product table. And these are all the products that are in the database right now. And if we take a look at the products on the machine itself, we will find that the database that we're looking at is the same as this one. Now, of course, you might want to be able to just turn it off, so you can just say disable the remote access and you can no longer access MySQL from outside of the EBS-50. There's also a possibility to make it synchronize with a time server. There is one installed already. If you have your own time server or if you want to turn this off because your EBS-50 won't be connected to an internet connection, you can change that as well. And those are the more advanced connection options. Thank you for watching. For the other videos in this tutorial range, check our playlist in the description. If you want to contact Opticon about the EBS-50, you can do so with the credentials that are also found in the description. Thank you for watching and see you next time.